A better Nigeria, is it a myth or do we keep hoping?
Nigeria is a highly religious country. How come corruption thrives?
Why is adoption not encouraged in Nigeria? Is there a future for the Nigerian youth?
Being rich and famous, is that the only reason for being an artist?
What makes a great nation? Is it the leaders? What about the people?
This is Answers with Dr.Reju.
Good evening and welcome to Answers with Dr.Reju, where critical life issues are clarified. My name is Lois. If you don't know, today is Dr. Reju's birthday. Happy birthday to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Lois.
And we're going to have a very special episode in honor of him. Okay, so the house is fuller today, and I'm going to do the introduction really quick. Okay, so we're going to start from Agnes. Agnes, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Joseph, you're welcome to the show.
Thank you, Lois.
I also have Scotty in the house today. You're welcome, Scotty.
Thank you so much.
Sheikh Zoom, you're welcome.
Thank you, Lois.
Joanne, you're welcome to the studio. We also have Mr. Israel. You're welcome today. And lastly, I have Lengdun. You're welcome. And of course, we have our teacher, our mentor, our boss, Dr. Reju.
Boss.
Yes. He is the
Chief resource person.
Yes. For the Center for Transformational Leadership in JOS. You're welcome, sir, and happy birthday to you.
Thank you very much, Lois. I'm very glad to be here.
Okay. Last week we talked about the Declaration of Forgiveness in JOS. Okay, and today we're going to talk about something different. We're going to talk about Dr. Reju. So we have a lot of questions coming from different places, and I hope he can handle them today. Okay.
Hope so too.
Okay, sir. You're looking good. I want to start, by saying you're looking really good. Someone outside will not know that you're a grandfather. Okay, when I first met you, I didn't know you were a grandfather at all. So you're looking good. You're looking young. You're looking like a millennial. So yes, and you speak intelligently, and for me, my first experience with you, I was really challenged. I was like, God, I can't just talk anyhow in front of this man. You really need to be deep. You really need to be learned. To ask him any question or even sit and talk with him. So, how has life been for the past 50-something years, I believe?
Yeah. Well. Thank you for the compliment that I'm looking good. I really love that. And I'm 57, but age is just a number. It's what goes on in the mind that really matters.
Truly.
I was kind of surprised when you're saying when you talk with me, you have to be deep. I just like to be ordinary. I want to be,
Really deep.
Yeah. I just want to be me, and I want to, I'm a learner. Maybe that's why I talk the way I talk, because everywhere I am, I'm always learning. I'm very observant. So in everything I see, I want to make meaning of it. So life has been fun for me, honestly. Because I try to have an understanding of life that if I'm excited, there's a reason. If I'm sad, there's a reason. So I enjoy my sadness. I enjoy my excitement.
Really? Enjoy sadness?
Yes, I do.
Wow.
Sadness is very, very beneficial. Right?
Okay.
It's very beneficial. So I really don't have any. I love my down times. I love my up times. Maybe that's why I'm looking this way.
Okay. All right, sir. If someone would ask me to do an assessment of you, I would say that you're someone who is at the peak of a very successful life.
Oh.
Yes. So, sir, I want to ask you, how would you assess yourself?
Peak. Nowhere near peak. If your plan is to live forever, right? How will you describe peak? Because my plan is to live forever.
Wow.
I love this world. I want to be here for a very long time. You know, so I'm nowhere near peak. If I don't think I have a peak. If I ever get to any point, it's just the beginning of another phase. So I kind of take life. You see, one thing I don't do is I find it difficult to celebrate. I'm just thankful. I don't, because when you celebrate, it's like, this is all. So I just take things, I'm grateful for achievements, you know, but I don't base, I believe whatever I've achieved is just an indication of bigger things that, you know, that I can achieve. So it's not, I'm always not in a place where I heave a sigh of relief. I'm always kind of, okay, if this can be done, then I can do much more. So I really don't kind of feel satisfied. I'm very hard on myself. I always drive myself. I always believe if you can do this, you can do much more. And if I mark my script, I'm a very, you know, I mark scripts, and my students know that I'm very tough. I'm very stingy with marks. You know, so, and that's the way I mark my own script too. So, peak of life, no, I'm nowhere near. In fact, I don't know the spelling of peak. Yeah.
Okay, sir. You know, you are someone that is very passionate about Africa.
Yeah.
What keeps you awake at night?
What keeps me awake at night for Africa is when I've been able to, I'm positioned in a place where I can see possibilities. And when I look at the possibilities, when I look at the potential and where we are in terms of our experience, in terms of our reality, it breaks my heart. It breaks my heart so much so that because I believe it can happen with a snap of the finger. It can happen so quickly if we just get things right. You know, if we just reappraise our history. You know, I was giving the example of Rwanda somewhere that the president, Paul Kagame, passed two profound laws. One, I mean, two in one, really, that really promotes the dignity of a Rwandan. Number one, they said no Rwandans should live in a mud house. No Rwandans should live in a mud house. Number two, he wiped off tribalism legally. You can't say you are a Tutsi. You can't say you are a Hutu. You are just Rwandan. And he didn't just do anything different because that's the way they were. Before colonization, there were no Hutus, there were no Tutsis. Right? They were there by birth, but it doesn't determine anything. It was the Belgian who colonized them that made those lines very, very bold. You know, it was made in concrete. And that divided the country. You guys know the story of the genocide. So that's what keeps me awake at night about Africa, because I believe that Africa can just change within a blink of an eye if we just get some basic things right, and it doesn't take rocket science to get them right. Yeah.
Okay, sir, you talked about the question about peak and all of that.
Yeah.
Sir. I want to ask, what is actually, or what will be fulfillment for you?
Fulfillment for me is when I set targets, I meet them, as and when and how it should be met. I always want to be able to say that in this kind of situation, I think I've given my best shot. That's fulfillment for me, you know, and because I set very high standards for myself. I drive myself so much. I bite more than I can chew, right? And I trust for very strong jaws. So I don't want to cut my coat according to my size. I want to determine the size, and then that determines the size of the coat. You know, I don't take things the way they come, because I believe I have to be creative. You know, so I'm not, fulfillment for me is, you know, it's a process. You know, I set goals, some long term, medium term, short term, you know, and I work hard. And fulfillment for me is when I'm not at a point where I can give an excuse for something I couldn't do, which I know I should have done. That's fulfillment for me. I don't like excuses. Those who work with me know that it's not in our vocabulary to say sorry. No.
Okay, sir. You spoke about Africa and you said if you can get some basic things right.
Yeah.
Please, can you mention some of these basic things?
You
and how we
can't
can be
really
able to
list
get to
them.
that?
Basic is, first of all, let's reconnect. Basic, for me, fundamental. We need to remind ourselves that our history didn't start with colonialism. Right? We had a life before colonialism. Because what has really dragged us back is the fact that we can't know. It's as if we have a memory loss of what life was before we were colonized. You know, for those who follow me on Facebook, I put a picture of the bronze cockerel that was taken away to Oxford over 100 and something years ago, and was recently returned. And my thinking is, if that was done hundreds of years ago, that means it was done before colonialism. This was done in Benin. And this was done before anything we call technology. There was no industry. Now, when you say I'm being indicted now, I say there's no industry. That was industry. That's industry. So if someone could do that with what we call crude technology, hand, no machines, just to be able to, to craft that masterpiece, that means we had a life. So for me, the basic thing we first of all need to really, really, sort out is to remind ourselves that we had a life before colonialism. And it starts with you guys, because all you know is, in fact, you guys are colonized, because this is neo-colonialism. So it's still, it's a more, it's a more grievous form of colonialism because it's so deceptive. It's as if we are free, but in the real sense of it, we're not free. At every point in time in Africa, at the time in Africa, it was either the West, Europe, America, but now it's China. But we are not under the government of China. But in realistic terms, we are colonized by China. And it's not only us, it's globally. A lot of companies right now globally are declaring losses because of the coronavirus. Because China is in charge of everything, right? So these are the things that we individually, as young people, that you have to remind yourself personally. I need to have a good sense of history, because if you don't know where you're from, you can't navigate to where you should be. Right now, we don't even know where we're from. I met a guy, just about a few hours ago, who studied in India. Did the masters in India, did the bachelors in India, and I said, something I really like about India was that they were colonized by the same British that colonized us, but they didn't lose their sense of history. They didn't lose their identity. If you meet any Indian anywhere, they speak their, they speak their language. I always tell you the story of a guy that lives here in Nigeria, born in Namibia, raised in England, lived in Kaduna for the last 30 years. I met him on a flight and I said, I'd love to go to India. He said, me too. He said he's never been to India. And he's Indian. He has Indian accent. Never been there. Why? That's the language they speak at home. That's the language they speak. So they are so connected with, their roots. But here, if you speak your dialect, it's as if you're uncouth. If you say, I don't speak my dialect, you look touche, right? You're kind of civilized. It's, it's very idiotic. It's not really. So those are things, good question. Those are things we really need to get back to. If you look at East Africa, I'm sorry I'm taking so much time on this. If you look at East Africa, why they might not have a robust economy like ours, but basic things work because they are not far detached from their, original identity. In East Africa, they don't start teaching in English until maybe high school. They teach them in Swahili. Yeah. They teach in Swahili. And because of that, that language has developed. No Nigerian language has developed. I was sharing the story in the office. What is crankshaft in Hausa? What's crankshaft in Igbo? What is shock absorber? All those kind of things. Because the language has, you can't teach physics in Yoruba or Hausa or Igbo. Because of that, technological development becomes almost impossible. Because a lot of things can be interpreted. Those laws that you learn in physics, right? You can communicate it. So that's really the issue, and I think I'll stop there. Did I answer your question right?
Yes, you mentioned one.
Just one, yeah. And it's very foundational. It's very foundational, yeah.
Okay, this is getting interesting already, but we'll be going on a break, and when we come back, we have more. Stay with us.
This is Partridge Radio.
Welcome back from the musical break. In case you're just joining us, today we are focusing on the sage, Dr. Reju, whose birthday happens to be today. And in case you want to listen to our previous episode, you can go to our website at answerswithdrreju.org to stream on all our previous episodes. Okay, John had a question before we went on a break. I don't know if...
Okay, so I just want to know how you've been able to handle different aspects of your life, because you are a teacher, you're a mentor, you're a grandfather, you're a father, you're so many things to so many people.
Yeah.
So how have you been able to handle all these aspects of your life so far?
Well, that's good. How I'm just thinking about it now. How did I manage it? The thing is, there is a connection between everything I do because it's an outflow of who I am. I don't get out of myself to do things. Father, grandfather, teacher, whatever. It's just there are different aspects of me. So I'm not getting out of one box into another box, into another box, another box. It's just like the way my hand will grip. The 5 fingers come together, right? So I don't have to think about it to be a dad, The way I talk to my kids, the way I talk to you guys, is the way I talk to my students. If I'm teaching, that's the way I relate with my staff. So everything I'm doing, there is a way they are connected. My life it lacks any kind of complexity. It's so simple. Because, summary, I'm either learning or teaching. I'm either learning or teaching. So my life is uncluttered. It's not, I don't really struggle. So because I know what I can't do. And what I can't do is not because of inability. It's something I'm not supposed to do. Right? I know exactly what I don't know. And if I want to learn it, I know effort to put into it if I need that kind of knowledge. Although I love knowledge. So I know exactly what I should be doing. I know where I should be. And I'm very intentional about everything I do. I don't have off moments. Right? I don't have off moments. If I just walk into the studio and I just chat with you guys, that's what I want to do for that time. So I'm not doing it so that I can get to other things. Right? So that's how I've been able to, so if I need to make a call, that's what I want to do. The truth is, I'm not a busy person. I don't know how that sounds. I'm not, because I'm not harassed, So I'm discharging my duty as a husband, as a father, as a friend to someone, as a mentor. So I'm not trying to be, 2 people. I'm just one person doing a lot of things. It's just that one person who is a husband, who is a father, who is somebody's friend, who is somebody's mentor, who is, that's the way. What I've seen with a lot of people is that they have many faces, right? There are a lot of places where I operate, and they can't even imagine that I do other things that I do because of the way I'm so focused on that at that particular point in time, because it's an expression of me. That's the word I was looking for, expressions. I kind of express in different ways, So it's the husband that's the father. The father is the mentor. That mentor is is the lover of Arsenal, and all that. So it's just different expressions of same person. Yeah.
Okay, so does this flow naturally, or is it something that with time you have learned to, manage? You've put everything in its place at different points because, we are in a generation of young people who are busy.
Yeah.
Okay, he's a boss. He's all these things that we've mentioned about you, but they have not really been able to put family, at a level that should be. I don't know how to explain
Yes, they
it.
do this and this one suffers.
Yes.
Yeah, it's because we live in a world where people act. People just sort of, they perform. It's a culture, that they perform. They are trying to put up a show. One, it comes out of people trying to compete with one another. That is a recipe for sadness, for depression, they want to outdo one another. You see, my major competitor is me. I compete with myself. So there's no fight. If I have any enemy, it's me. Right? If I have any friend, my best friend is me. So that's the way. But a lot of people, they wake up, they put on a dress, they're thinking, how would Joanne feel when he sees this dress? It's not how you feel about the dress. How am I going to be perceived? Right? Once it's okay with me, right? If you give me a compliment, that's okay. It doesn't add anything to it. Right? Because I know me. So it's being comfortable in your skin. Your generation, you are driven by a culture of performance. It's a kind of a heroic kind of culture. People want to be heroes. They want to be known. Somebody is good because he has many followers on internet, on Instagram or Twitter, or all those kind of things. So, but, if the followers come, fine. If they don't come, fine. I want to do things well. If it doesn't get big, fine. As long as it's well. So that's the way, you ask whether I learned it. I would say yes, because I have people who have influenced me, and I've listened to them, and I've seen the way they live their lives. I have people that I look up to. But at this stage of my life, people that I look up to, we become like friends. My mentor is like my friend. We bounce ideas. In fact, he asks me more questions now than I ask. It's as if, that has a kind of a role reversal. He asks me more questions now, than I used to ask him. So it's like that. I actually learned it. It's something that can be learned. It's something that can be learned. Another challenge, maybe I need to drop that in, is that for millennials, they don't have one person that they are really modeling their lives after. And they have many, and these people that they model their lives after, they don't have relationships with them. They are celebrities on TV, on all those. You don't know them when they are really themselves. You don't, and that's why people are shattered when the person you want to be like just commits suicide. You think the person has all, and the person just killed himself or herself. Now you're kind of wondering. So whosoever you're going to model your life after should be somebody you have a personal relationship with, right? Should be somebody, if possible, you've entered his or her bedroom. You know the way he relates with the children, the way he relates with the husband, the way he relates with the wife. Who is this person really when no one is watching? Because most people, the persona outside, totally different. I tell those I mentor that if you're coming to my house and I'm fighting my wife, I won't stop. Yeah, I won't. You meet us fighting. So that you know that fight is part of marriage. That's the first question I ask people that got married. Have you had your first fight? Yeah, have you had your first fight? So that's a lot of people have two faces. And I did a bit of psychology. That's mental illness. Yeah.
Okay, so talking about still what Joanne was talking about managing things. So do you have a time management strategy how you're able to balance all of this, because I figured that you also lecture, you just do so many things. And how are you able to
time management is a myth. You can't manage time because time doesn't wait, right? Time doesn't wait. You manage your energy, right? And managing your energy is something you grow to understand, right? I don't try to manage time. I'd like to be on time. And because I work with foreigners, I work with Americans, and if they say the meeting is 3, right? By 2:45, the room is full. Yeah. Because the only way the meeting can start at 3 is for you to get there before 3. But in Africa, we leave home at 3 because the meeting is 3. So I'm very time conscious. Now, that helps me. I tell people it's very difficult for me to be late for a meeting. So if you're talking about time management to that extent, I do that. Because I know that I lived my teenage years in Lagos and my early professional life. So I know about traffic. And I worked in the bank where you can't be late, right? So I'm not used to late coming. I'm not used to being late. I'm always on time. Because I factor in a lot of things that I can't control. So you see, when people talk about, I've seen people do seminars on time management, and time management is a myth. Because you can't manage something you can't control, right? But you can make use of time, right? And the way you use time is you look at your energy level. Do you have, I like to sleep well, because there are times when I don't sleep. So I sleep intentionally, I wake up intentionally. I don't have a time when I go to bed is when my work allows me to go to bed, And the way I'm going to bed is going to affect the next day. So that's maybe if you're talking about time management, that's much that I do. But I'm very conscious of my energy level because at every point in time, I want to be at my best.
Right, sir. Actually, I'm just enjoying this session. So at what point in your life did you become intentional about your activities and what you do?
At what point? I think it's kind of fluid, so I can't really pinpoint a particular time. Because I started my working career as a banker, and that is an organization where the culture is 0 defect. We can't handle errors. You can't come to the bank and ask me your balance and I say, I don't know. Right? We can't say we're going to open by 8:15. It's 8 o'clock. Right? It's 8 o'clock. Because if you don't open by 8 o'clock, somebody can sue you and the bank is finished. Because they will tell you, because you didn't open at 8, I've lost 10 billion. So I've learned that kind of precision. Maybe that's where I got it from. And then maybe I could go further back. My father, right, who I basically adore because of his discipline. Since I knew him as my dad will wake up at 5 a.m., for his own personal prayer. By 6, he rings the bell for the whole family, right? To wake. He never missed that until maybe the last 5, 6, 7 years of his life, when he was now, in his 80s, and he's been a bit sick, and he couldn't do that again. But I so adore him for his discipline, especially in terms of time. I remember when they were treating him for diabetes, and he had to eat certain meal. At 75, 76, he had to change diet from what he's eating all his life to now go on vegetables, to now go on more of, I don't know what, and he changed seamlessly. And they told him you have to eat at this time. He doesn't miss it. I remember it's always 3 p.m. By 2:55, thereabout, he's seated. And woe betide the person who doesn't bring the food on that time. So those are the kind of things that sort of taught me. So I'm someone that I don't have a culture of excuses. And that's why those who work with me have a bit of, they have a bit of challenge. But they kind of learn, because they kind of wonder, why can't they understand that You know, I was talking with one of our teachers. I said, why didn't you come to work? He said, it's raining. It's raining? That's why you didn't come? The rain happened only in your house? You know? It's raining. And he was looking at me as if, rain. I said, you enter now if you don't have a car. Right? And I painted a picture. If it's raining and they ask you to come and collect 10 million naira, when you say it's raining, I won't go. You see, it's selfishness. You know, so those are the kind of things. And, you know, that's my orientation. That there's no excuse not to do the thing that you should do in your life. Yeah.
Okay, so related to that, so how have you been able to maintain this culture of excellence in your culture where the bar of excellence is very low?
Well, again, you know, it's my value system. I create my own world to the limit, to the extent to which I can do it. Like, I will never drive on the wrong side of the road. Right? And everybody does it. I can't get to a zebra crossing and not stop. But again, I also know that if I'm going to stop at the zebra crossing in Nigeria, I might be endangering lives. Right? So I'm more aware, because if I stop at the zebra crossing, the guy behind me might overtake me and kill the person that I'm stopping for. So that's the challenge that I have to. So it's a very good question. Right? So I now have to take other things into consideration. Because there are many things, again, maybe I learned it like Lois said. When I was in the university, you know, at that time I started driving, and I discovered that the traffic light that we had in Unilag then was designed by the late Professor Awojobi, who gave me the idea of what traffic light is, right? Traffic light is for guidance, right? So that traffic light has a sensor. If you're approaching the red light, which is that you're supposed to stop, and if there are no cars coming from other sides, it automatically changes to green so that you can go. Right? So I discovered that traffic light is not law. It's just for order. Right? It's just for order. And I discovered that, if I learned that from some of my friends in the US, that if you are driving on a certain speed, you see, life can be precise. If you are driving on a certain speed and you get to this traffic light and it's on green, and if you keep going on that same speed, every light that you meet will be on green because they are timed. Are you with me? So everybody around you might do things wrong. I always talk about the junction to my office. Nigerians don't even know traffic rules. Even the authorities. They don't know how to negotiate roundabouts except you put a concrete there. You know? Except you put a concrete. Once they get to a roundabout, they drive on the left. And when you drive on the left, we block ourselves. You know? So, but this is a challenge. When I get there, I do my best to correct, but you're talking to a deaf man. The guy doesn't even understand. So, but I won't use that as an excuse that that's the way people do it. You know why people come late to meetings? I don't want to be the first person. Yeah. That has the orientation. I don't want to be the first person. The meeting is 3, right? Get there for 3. But you know that if you get there for 3, there will be nobody there. Right? So you to wait. And I tell people, if you come for a meeting, people are there for 3, you are waiting for latecomers. I said, why punish the obedient? Is it those are the kind of things we do? Right? Those are the kind of, so it's a very toxic environment. But you don't allow what's wrong to become your standard. Right? You want to set the standards for what is right. Because you might just be the trigger, the beginning of an orderly society. That's always my belief.
Okay, sir. I want to know how you've been able to manage challenges at every point of your life.
Okay.
Where in situations where things are not going the way you plan,
okay,
or things are moving slower
okay,
than the way you want them to be, at those points, how are you able to manage your emotions and your expectations at that point?
I won't say I manage things well when I'm going through down times, but I work with certain principles that, number one, no battle of life ever go as planned. Right? So I'm highly adaptive. You see, many times what gets us down is the expectations that are carved in stone. And when it doesn't go that way, it just shatters you. But I work with the principle that no battle ever go as planned. And it's a military principle. Right? And that's why when soldiers go to war, they always have backup plans in case things goes out of hand. Because they know that no battle, and that's the reality of life. No, I don't believe life owes me anything. A lot of people live life with a sense of entitlement. I don't believe life owes me anything. I only believe that I will get the demand that I make on life. There is nothing that will happen to me that I will ever blame anybody. Right? I won't blame the weather. I won't blame, but I will only blame myself. So I've managed, maybe I can tell you, I don't manage it, right? Many times. So things go bad, and I feel bad, and I tell myself, this is a time to feel bad, right? I was telling some people that being sad is good. And I have a playlist in my music album, in my music library, where I have sad songs. Sad songs. And I listen to them so that the sadness can really, really overwhelm me. Because I know, like in the military too, when you want to confuse the enemy, you blow smoke into their camp. So they get disoriented. They won't know how to proceed. What the generals tell them, when smoke comes into your camp, right, just continue the way you were moving. Right? Just continue. Just maintain how you were moving. Very soon you'll come out in the clear. Because it's just a smoke screen. Yeah. And that's the reality of life too. This is a time to be sad. You see, when I go greet people who are mourning, I don't tell them to stop crying. Because crying is therapeutic. Yeah. Crying is therapeutic. If you dash your foot against a stone and you don't feel pain, you're dead. So that's I don't try and manage your down times. Let the down times, really make you down. It will pass. And then at the end of it, learn those lessons. Right.
Okay, so let me drift a little from the questions we've been asking.
Okay.
All right.
Let's see how far you drift.
A lot of young people, most of us here are young, and quite a number of times I've heard so many people, especially married people, they try to tell you that when you marry the wrong spouse or the wrong person, you are finished. You are finished in life, in everything, you are finished. So I don't know, how do you see that, or what's your take on that?
Well, marriage is a matter of life and death. And it's not death 6 feet down, right? It is true that if your marriage doesn't work, you might never be able to put things right, in your life. But the joy of it is that you can fix your marriage. And it's a myth that there's a wrong spouse and all those kind of those things. It's not true. Because a lot of people that counsel on marriage, they are using their own personal experiences. A well-informed marriage counselor will let you know that you want to create your own that's never been seen. You can only learn from mine. You can't be mine. I always tell some young girls, better thank God you didn't marry me. I'm not a good person for you. So it's a myth to say that, because a marriage doesn't work because you have a right partner. There's no right partner anywhere. You don't marry a wife. No. And you don't marry a husband. You marry a woman. It is your responsibility to turn the woman to a wife. Right? You marry a man. It's the woman's responsibility to make the man a husband. But a lot of people are looking for that's why the most senseless thing anybody can do is to date a married person. Right? Because you want to eat what you didn't cook. And you don't know the condiments there. Right? You don't know how that person became what he became. And you want to, so it's a very horrible thing. So I'm grateful that I met my wife now. We've been married now for about 31 years. By December this year, we'll be 32. And I met her when I didn't, so there's nothing, it has to be love, not and choice. Not because I have anything. I didn't have a house, I was squatting. When I rented my first 2-bedroom apartment, I was not in the house, except a full mattress on the floor. I remember the first time she came to visit me, we ate on the mat. So we've known ourselves from scratch. So there's nothing to prove to anybody. If I want to, pose, he would tell me, no. I knew you when you were absolutely nothing. So you can't. So it's not about, but you see, if you don't take responsibility for what happens in your marriage, it's going to ruin your life. Because it's something that has to do with a lot of emotions. So you don't see marriage as an achievement. It's a responsibility. Right? It's not changing from S to M on your CV, single to married. That's not what it is. That's just play. And this thing we call marriage is not for young boys and girls. It's for adults. It's for matured. And maturity is not a function of age. I got married at 25. My wife was 23, right? But everybody around me knew this is a man, right? Because I started living alone at age 17. So it's so. But there's a lot of things that you can learn from people, but honestly, the things you teach yourself, they are invaluable. Yeah.
Okay, we are going to go on another break, and we'll be back to conclude the program.
This is Partridge Radio.
Welcome back from that musical break. We have limited time, but we'll try to cover as much as we can before the time runs out.
All right, so you mentioned something about what you do with your time.
Mm-hmm.
You're either teaching or learning.
Yeah.
And I want to ask a question on leadership. How do you manage bad leadership, considering that you are a leader and you are always, I know you're always leading right at all time. You want things
Not every
done.
time I lead right.
But in most cases, even when you didn't do right,
Yeah.
so you don't live in denial.
Yeah.
And your favorite quote on leadership is that a leader defines reality.
Yeah.
So now you live in a culture where there are a lot of wrong people in leadership.
Yeah.
They don't even know that they can't lead because of what they hear. So how do you manage that, knowing what is right?
I identify my sphere of influence, right? There are people that I might not be able to correct. I might not be able to interact with them to be able to let them see what they're doing wrong. So I don't bother myself about that, right? But if that person has any kind of contact with me, and I know that the way you're leading is not good. Now, depending on how that person is, if it's somebody younger than me, if it's older than me, there are ways we can, and there are some that I just, let go. So I identify my sphere of influence. I don't want to talk to someone who won't hear me, right? Yeah, I don't, like I tell you guys who work with me, I said, I'm not looking for those that we give instructions to. I'm looking for those who will receive instructions from me. Because my instructions are offerings. They are offers that I give you. It's a counsel that you can reject or you can accept. So I identify my sphere of influence. And now, if I put it specifically, if I have a leader under me that I know is not leading right, it's not working according to the design, there are ways also. I want to first of all look at that person's, because people lead outside of their personality. They also lead, as an outflow of their experiences. If you've had a very bad leader, you are likely to be a bad leader. Yeah, you're likely to be a bad leader. If you have a toxic, so for people, and a lot of people that I work with, I am not the first person that they are working with. So they come with all kinds of ideas. And I have to now deal with everybody on their own level. So I look for that. What is that moment? There's some moment that I call truth moment in my own mind. This is the moment of truth that I need to tell this guy. I look at when that guy can listen. And sometimes it might be not me saying anything. I will just create the environment. And the person comes and said, well, I think I goofed there. And I know that I have communicated, even wordless. So it's about, like you said, I got that quote from Max Depre, that the primary responsibility of a leader is to define reality. So I try to define that reality in body language, in instruction, in facial expression. If you greet me and I answer in a very, in the or then you know that I'm communicating, right? So if you send me a WhatsApp message, I let you know that I've read it and I'm not responding. It's a communication. So I don't let people know that I'm happy with them when I'm not happy. So I'm always not, and I tell people I can be short-tempered, right? But it's for good. So foundation is you are accepted, don't perform. But if I rebuke you, right, ensure. But again, like I said, I identify my sphere of influence. There are people I don't have the authority to correct. And I let them be. And that's very common here because people are champions here, in this context. Everybody is a boss, so. Did I answer your question? Yeah.
Okay. So, your different sphere of influence, I cannot begin to imagine how many pieces of advice you've given people. Let's say 500, 1,000, 2,000.
No, you can't number it.
Yeah, but I want to ask, so what's the best piece of advice that you've got?
That I've gotten, right? Good question. Good question. Wow. Good advice. I've gotten a lot, and it's about, I can remember a particular one. I was going to take a step to leave an organization for another, and I was at, I was in a very kind of a confused, complex kind of situation. And it was then I heard that you can't solve a problem that you are part of. Yeah. If you are part of a problem, you can't solve it. If you are sitting on that chair and there's something wrong with that chair, you have to stand up. That's when you can really see the chair. So I think that's and I think the person put it, on the kind of a biblical toga. He was talking about, Moses. If you live in the palace of Pharaoh, you can't save Israel. Right? You cannot save Israel while you are living in the palace of the oppressor, of the people that you want to save. So that's one piece of advice, because it was a major decision in my life. So I've received quite a lot about people. Okay, don't have high expectations of people, so that when they, when I deliver maybe like a presentation and things like that, people go, that's a very good one. I got that advice. Don't let that be your source of motivation. Right? Because the day they tell you that your presentation today was bad, it will also crush you. So my audience is always me. I want to be able to say, well, I think I've given my best shot. Yeah. A lot of people do it for others, all right.
So I'm listening to you, and I think I can conclude now that a large part of your life is influenced by your parents.
Okay. Yeah.
Somehow, I think I can conclude
Yeah.
that. And I believe you have traveled outside of the shores of Nigeria and must have seen parenting in that axis. I actually live in a community where I can say sometimes I want to blame parents for the level of societal vices we're having. So where did we actually get it wrong when it comes to parenting?
Well, I think it's more about, the general thing that we talk about, globalization, because it doesn't respect whether you are educated or not. Globalization affects everybody. The world became very open, and all manner of ideas come, and I believe that led to a disconnect between the world of children and the world of their parents. And the parents they didn't know when that world changed. So it so happens that a lot of parents and their children, they don't speak the same language. And I always give the example between me and my dad was born in 1915. I was born in 1963. That's a long time. My first daughter was born in 1989, right? And I discovered that my generation were not as close to our kids the way my dad, who is very far from me in terms of age, that we were close, right? And we were more. I'm number 9 in my family. Yeah. And I have, 4 behind me. So, we can actually have a football team. So it's a question of the world changed and most parents didn't know. At the time, every family watched TV together, or they listen to the radio together, but now kids have TV in their own room. So gradually, there was that fragmentation. There was that disconnect, and the parents didn't know. So most kids are now being parented by books, by TV, by movies, by all those kind of things. And what their parents now say, the TV personality has to confirm before it's true. Before it was the other way around. So globalization really is, which actually says that the world has become smaller. So what happens in America gets here quickly. So that's and it changed and the parents didn't know.
Wow. There's so much we've learned today, and I believe that there are more questions that we would like to ask, but because of time, we have to stop here. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Lois.
For pouring out your life for us. We've come to the end of the program, and if you have not you've come to the end of the program, and you can go on our website at Dr.Reju.org to stream on all our previous episodes. Okay? Thank you so much for listening, and don't forget to tune in next week for another interesting and exciting episode. Thank you so much.
This is Partridge Radio.